Well, Mikanagi, Bina, welcome back. Okay, tonight's presentation is on Wikani Win and Manituk Feasts and Ceremony. Now, I always like this presentation, and but I've never given it. But I like to talk about our feasts and our ceremony, and there's many of them. That's why there's two parts. And so it took me quite a while, I think, to go through all these ceremonies, remembering every aspect of it. But the important part, the different roles people played in them. So we'll go on from here because there's quite a bit. Okay, I'd like to go to the first slide. I want to welcome everybody. Okay, Wikani Win, the word for feast. Food is cooked and offered at special occasions, and sometimes food is just offered uncooked. Okay, that would be like food that's grown in gardens. Many times at the time of harvest, people would take some of the corn, some of the beans, the squash, different things that they grew, a few of them, and they would actually make a rock platform, or they would have a platform actually in the northwest corner. Again, that spirit, Nanabushu, resides in the northwest corner of our four directions. That's where he sits. And so also during the harvest of horned animals, they would take some of that, the best meat. And what's the best part of the meat? The fat, the liver, maybe a part of the backstrap. Yeah. And they would put that there. Okay. So that these animals may live and that we're thinking about them. So these feasts were held to spirits, to the Manituk, and they were also honoring the Awasi, the wild animals. There's yearly occurrences in feast. Summer solstice, or excuse me, the solstices in a year were usually observed. They're not so much, but long time ago, the beginning of the different seasons, it was important. And the people counted the moons, and they counted the years, and they kept track of those kind of things because, you know, especially our people, when they stayed in one spot long enough, they planted, always would plant. And it was important to know, and they learned that from the animals. They looked at their fur, the changing of their fur, their young, when the young was born, the changing of the leaves, the budding of like cattails, the harvest of food and plants, medicinal plants, honoring people, usually while they were still alive. Personal lifetime markers, birthdays. Remembering our children that they've been, they have a yearly birthday. And sometimes they would count their days or the years by moons. Namings, when children were named. Graduation and rites of passage. These are lifetime markers. I put graduations on there because even today it's a big thing amongst our people. When our young people graduate, that's for us, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And so first kill ceremonies, usually these are for boys. These are usually family events. And so that boy, it's a rite of passage when he does his first kill, and it shows that he's able to provide for himself, feed himself. Okay. Naming ceremonies and a feast, they were family events. Honorings. Sometimes they were they honored people in their family. Could be elders, it could be women, it could be men, it could be boys, girls. And sometimes they were communal events, meaning that it was their clan. They were clans, and they had different ceremonies for different ones in their clan, or even a whole different community. Sweat lodge ceremonies could happen anytime. On many of the different reservations, you drive around the communities, different communities, and you see that sometimes a lot of the families have beside their house, in front of their house, behind their house, or someplace by where they, right by where they live, they have the Madudu Swan, the sweat lodge. Okay. So those ceremonies can be done any time of the year. Also, oh, I didn't mention weddings. Okay. The weddings, us natives, when we have weddings, it's a little bit different from the Christian wedding. So the different tribal groups have different things. So those weddings and those events were planned out by the grandparents, usually, and the parents, where they usually pick the partner traditionally for their sons or their grandsons, boys and girls. And those were usually arranged marriages long time ago. That doesn't happen really anymore today, of course. So but those are reasons to celebrate and of course have a big feast. Okay. And so I've performed 3 weddings, traditional weddings in my lifetime. So, and I have 2 more coming up and then in the future, whenever those couples are ready. So, all right. Huh?
Because of the crop.
Okay, this next one now is particularly for the women. Talking to all the women, the girls, regarding foods and cooking for a feast. First of all, Anishinaabe women could never take part in preparation of food or cooking or serving of food while they are undergoing their monthly menstrual cycle. That's part of the teachings when they go through the rites of passage. They're not even to serve food. Okay? They cannot be part of harvesting the natural foods of the earth, digging roots, picking berries, medicines. They can't be part of that if they're undergoing their monthly cycle. They're especially not the cook. Not just at feasts, but at all times, especially when they gain their own families. Okay. Usually they will have a sister come in or a close relative and do that because of they're considered so powerful that they can affect that. And at some point in time, we will talk about the woman's rites of passage. Okay, girls' rites of passage. Generally, for feasts, large feasts, there is one woman, Agichi an old lady, an old woman who oversees a large communal feast. She's the boss. She will ask other women to help and be involved. Usually the best jibai kui, the cooks. She will also ensure that the area of the feast is smudged first. So those are her main responsibilities. Okay. So women take great pride in doing that. That's something they organize and they participate, and one day they will have that honor. She can also request that they cook certain dishes either the modern way over a stove or from a fire. Some of the food, depending on the ceremony, should be cooked over a fire the traditional way, or some will say it can be cooked on a stove. Like some of the ceremonies that happen outdoors are cooked over a fire. So the women have to know how to cook over a fire. Okay. You know, not just like on a stove, not too hot, not too cold. And just like cooking over an oven, you got to watch your cooking. You can't run off and start visiting or get on your phone or something will happen to your cooking. Okay, that's what happened to me when I tried to cook rice for the first time. It just made it into mush because I didn't watch it boil too much. But I'm not a woman, so that okay. Although small local family feasts are initiated by the family clan patriarch, they usually design the menu and who cooks what. But today potlucks are becoming more popular, and so where everybody again shares, brings food. And but this is important for women to learn that, know that. Okay, so okay, we can go on to the next slide. Manituanagan, the spirit dish. How many of you guys don't know about the spirit dish? You don't know about the spirit dish? Okay. So once the food is ready and before it's served, usually they have a natural container. Usually it's a birch bark or some kind of bark, or it's a large leaf, something biodegradable. Is it okay if I get yours? So here, we'll just pass that around. So this is made out of birch bark. I make a lot of those in the spring, and sometimes my daughter does the same. And so you take a portion of each of the food dishes, a small little portion, and you put it in there. You just added this small portion. Okay. Any drink, water, tea, coffee, a sweet drink, you put a small portion into that container. Okay. Then, huh? Yeah, I gave that Travis. He puts his business cards in them. And you use some some tobacco. So what the elder will do, so they usually choose an elder. It doesn't have to be a man. It can be the old lady. It can be the head cook. But they usually get an elder to say the prayer. Okay. And so they'll take the tobacco and they'll pray with that tobacco and also hold that spirit dish. And once they're done praying, they put the tobacco in with the food. Okay. and they place it from, we call the akwekan, the domestic animals. They put it out into away from them so they won't eat it, like the dogs or the cats, off someplace. Sometimes they'll deposit it up in a fork of a tree, or someplace, if there's a rock, someplace they'll offer, and that's a spirit dish. And the purpose of the spirit dish is remembering those people that have passed on before you. And so because the feast has some kind of importance to it, they want to offer that food to them too. Remember them. So at feast, always a spirit dish is done. Sometimes if you're cooking for the first time of you're having your, cooking your wild game, you can have a spirit dish. Okay, like we celebrate different holidays, European holidays, so we offer a spirit dish too. Always remember to make a spirit dish. So anything that's biodegradable. You want some coffee? Yeah, there's some right here. Let's see, where is the cups? All right. You're not being rude. You're just being Brandon. Brandon's not rude. I mean, Brandon, you're just, there you go. Yeah. Okay. Now, this is only half the ceremonies, half of the feasts that the Anishinaabe have. Okay. We have close to 30 of them per calendar year. Okay. That's how many ceremonies we have. Some of them are personal, family, but some more communal. Okay. So I'm going by the moons, the months, in a 13-year cycle. So the first one, get your Manatukisis, the Great Spirit Moon. That's in January. Okay. Matayawen, the bargain or trade dance. Okay. That's a communal ceremony and feast honoring a, well, I forgot a word, a winter spirit. Okay. That's coming up next month. The first weekend of the Gitchumanatugisis, the Great Spirit Moon. Okay, I think that's on the 7th of January. We'll be having that. Okay. So the Matai Wen is a time when everybody gathers, part of this whole idea is that we did not isolate ourselves. We came together as a community, as clans, as families, and this is part of being a tribe. That's most important. If you don't get anything out of this during this presentation, is that our people always got together, they ate, they worshiped together, they did things together that had to do with the land and the spirits, respecting one another, and this comprised our tribal group, our tribal unity, about family. And that's, to Native people, that's very important, their family. Okay. Next one. Andikisis, the crow moon. Okay. That's the next one. Now, the Matai Wen also is put on in February too, but so the next large event that takes place is Makwa and Nasawalgan, the Bear Lodge. That's a communal ceremony and feast. Okay. The bears usually come out of hibernation, usually mid to late March. sometime like that. Sometimes early March, it depends a lot on the weather. They come out. All right. So I don't know if you've ever seen them when they come out, or they're skinny. They live on their fat all winter. They're sleeping, but they get nourished off their fat. They draw nourishment. And how they do that is they lick their paws all winter. And somehow that's how they get their nourishment. They lick their paws, and the fat that they acquired, you know, all summer and fall, it comes out through their paws, and they lick them, and they can sleep all winter like that. But by springtime, they're pretty skinny, and they wake up. Okay, so the Bear Lodge is also, we have the bear dance. Okay, men, they put on their bear hides like that, and their songs that are sung, and the bears come out like that, you know, and they dance, you know, and they'll claw like that, roll around. They're glad to see each other, their relatives, like that. Okay, they have a bear dance. And then the lodge fort, it's like a long teepee. It's a long teepee, like two teepees, but they're separated, and they have this big long lodge. And then there's a big pole set up in the back. And the fire pit is a big long fire pit. And all these men that, and some women too, they dance, and they hang all these bear robes on this pole. And then they bring in this food, okay? And they sit around there, and they gorge themselves. Eat and eat and eat until your belly's so big and round, you're going, yeah. And so that's how bears are. When they come out, they just find food and gorge themselves. Can't take no more food. All right, so that's what happens in the late March, and we will have that this year. Someplace, we got to find a place. So invite everybody to come to that. All right, again, on the Crow Moon, the spring solstice. Okay, so spring is coming. So how they observe these solstices is usually during it would be the third full moon. That would be the solstice. It's supposed to happen around the third week of the Crow Moon. So what they do is they all gather, and each person takes some tobacco or a gift, and they thank the Great Spirits for them making it through the hard winter. They're thankful to be alive and made it. Then they have a big feast, okay? Big get together. All right, Deck Geese is another full Crow Moon event. Zinge Bakwad, Zingazi Bakwad, the maple sugar harvest. This is a big family feast event. Now, when our people came across the Red River out east, North Dakota, between Minnesota, there's no more maple trees. There's no maple trees, okay, that grow across on the west side of the Red River. So they tap the sweet elm trees, and also the birch bark trees. Now the birch bark, the sap of the birch bark is really sweet. Tastes like watermelon, that sap. Yeah, tastes really sweet, tastes good. You can actually just fill a cup. Tastes good, really good. Some of our people did that, but I've gone to these maple sugar harvests like that. And when that sap starts running, it just pours out. I mean, it will fill up a gallon bucket in about 15 minutes. It just pours out that much and with that much pressure. Yeah. And so you're constantly running. Well, today what they do is when they tap into the trees, they put these clear hoses on them. And they run to this big kind of a water thing where they put liquid in. And so they fill those up. Those are usually on a flat bed. And then they bring them to a cooker. And the cookers are these fires that have these big stones or cement blocks or fire brick. And they have these big wide troughs, and they can be 10 feet by 5 feet wide. And they're about a foot deep. And they pour the sap in there. And then they put a light bulb looking thing in there. And this fire is always burning, and it's evaporating the water of this that's in the sap. And they're cooking it, evaporating it. When that light bulb, that little device, it sinks, then it's ready. And so they have to watch the heat. And then there's little taps on the side, and then the syrup, which is very light brown, about this color of Carlene's coat, poured into 60-gallon drums. So that's how they do it contemporary. And then some of the families, they have their own outfits. They've cut all their wood ready the fall for those sugar camps. And they stack their wood. So when they get there, they actually set up tents, teepees, they're staying out there. And so when that sap comes in, there's the old ladies and the men, the older men, they're stirring the sap and they're cooking it. The water's evaporating. And of course, then what a lot of the people do once it turns into syrup, they have big iron frying pans. And they have a different other fireplace, and they're constantly stirring it, the sap, the maple sugar, and then it starts to granulate to make like brown sugar. You keep stirring it, and it actually granulates, and it becomes hard and sticky, kind of sticky. And then they put it in molds, all kinds of molds, and they make birch bark strips. Little sew the ends like a ring, and they crush it down, and they put it in other molds, and you can actually ball it up in your hand and eat it like that. Or they'll pour the sap into molds and they'll let it dry like hard candy. And in the old days, they just used to put up a canvas on a tripod, and they would put all that stuff in a tent and let it stay until spring. Because sugar is a good preservative. It'll stay. So there's a lot of work into it. And then, of course, after that harvest, they have a big feast. And yeah, it's really good that way. So yeah. So the next event, Opeechee Geesis, the robin moon, when the robins come in the spring, usually in April. So your first thunder offering. Now this is possibly one of the oldest times of feasting and offerings. Now, when you were here at the first storytelling, I told you the story of Nanabujo, and how he went and searched for his dad, Ipinga Shumuk, the chief of the Thunderbeans, and how they fought each other. but he couldn't hurt his dad, and Ipinga Shumuk, his father, showed respect to him because he fought so hard. And doing that, he also gave him that pipe. The first pipe came from the thunder being, and that black pipe, and to bring it to his people. And he told them anytime he came from the west, the first thunders, that the people were supposed to stand out, hold that pipe up, or if they didn't have a pipe, just go out there with your tobacco and offer it to the thunder beings. People still do that. So when you hear that first thunder, that's what they do. They go out there and they talk to that spirit. But then when they hear that thunder, they'll go in the house and they'll cover up the mirrors. Because if that thunder comes in and it'll see that mirror, that reflection, it'll bounce off inside the house. I've talked to some elders here that it happened. So they cover their windows or mirrors, excuse me. Anything shiny, they put away, because those thunder beings will come after that. Okay. So then they have a big feast, and they again offer that spirit dish to that first thunder being, to Ipinga Shumuk and his those that follow him, those thunder beings. Okay. All right. Let's see what's the next one. Oh, okay. OPG Geishis. The Robin Moon again. We're in April. Are we? Oh yeah, okay, that's during April, yeah. So the Family Medicine Renewal Feast. Okay. A lot of people, families, and individuals have their own medicine bundles, okay? And we'll talk about the medicine bundle and what it is. And what comprises a medicine bundle. Okay. One of the elders here in an earlier presentation, she wanted to know about that. So a medicine bundle is usually a container or a wrapper that holds the sacred things that are sacred to us as an individual, as a family, and it could be even as a tribe or band. Hold sacred, something they use in prayer, in offering, okay? So it could comprise of tobacco, it could be a pipe, it could be sweetgrass, it could be things like that, feathers, or different kinds of feathers. It could be piece objects of things that you wear or that you use for healing to help people. So it could be actual herbal medicines in it. It could be pieces of clothing. We have people back home that they have societies and they wear certain kind of clothes or garments during that time. So they consider those sacred. So that's part of their, not everybody has them, but you know, that's part of their bundle, or it's a bundle separate. Maybe they have more than one bundle. But it was also contain like maybe matches, maybe flint and steel, maybe a cutting board, a knife, or some kind of a sharp stone. It could be a spoon. Any object that you use in ritual or prayer. It could be paint. Some kind of paint that maybe you paint yourself with. Or it could be a pair of moccasins you use during ritual or ceremony. And that's all stuff that could be wrapped up in a so-called bundle, okay? tied up. That's a sacred thing to you. That's kind of defines your spirituality. Okay. These things are opened. Okay. I forgot, it could be a rattle, a shishik one. And so those are open. The family opens these medicine bundles in an open area, and they have a feast, and they expose them to their families. And what that's for is for the geeses, the sun and the crater, to shine its light down on this medicine that they use to renew it, to gather its strength. It's been tied up all year, maybe a song or sacred song or two is sung, and so it's a renewal. Usually these are family or their clan, combined family. They'll do that. Maybe you're a powwow dancer and all your sacred feathers, okay? Stuff you use. So they bring their feathers out, their bustle feathers, their outfit. They put them on blankets. They smudge them like that. They smudge them. Okay. So these are bundles. So the bundle is a container that holds the sacred items. It could be a suitcase. It could be a hide of an animal. It could be a hide of an animal. It could be a furry animal. Long time ago, they used to make their medicine bags out of the animal skins, even with the fur on yet. Stuff like that. Okay. So, yeah. So that's during that time. Omakaki geese, the frog croaking moon. I like this moon. This is when you hear all the frogs chirping down by the ponds and the creeks, and you hear they have a choir. And so, and if anything walks by, some kind of animal stirs down there, all of a sudden you hear them quit. They're all croaking. Okay. This is when we have the Madewan, the Grand Medicine Lodge of the Anishinaabe. Now, I'm going to have a special 2-series event on this. This is before our people came out onto the prairie here, this is all we had. That's all we had. That's our oldest lodge. Society or teaching lodge. And it has 8 degrees in it. And young and old belong to it. They teach them the ways of all the plants, all the different kinds of water, all the different kinds of soils. It teaches them about the interconnectedness of all living things, the energies that pass in the air and under the ground. They teach them about that. And as you learn more, gain more knowledge, they teach you about how to combine, how these things heal people and heal themselves using the energy and forces of nature. And very few people reach 8 degree, and these men and women are very powerful. And some say they're like magicians. You know what a magician is? Huh? What's a magician? Yeah, he can do magic. Well, that's a word maybe that will describe it in the least of terms, but they gain powers how to harness this. So I've heard stories when they've had these big lodges, the Median lodges, that these powerful 7th and 8th degree men and women would come together, and they'd sit in these big long lodges covered, by birch bark, and they would each perform their magic or their powers, show each other their powers, not showing off. But this man, he would come in, and as he was coming into the lodge, he'd be grabbing this hay and this grass, grab it, bring it, put it into his shirts like that. Put it in like that and put some under his hair, stick, tie his braid around it or something, you know. And then when it come time, you take this hay out, grass, and put it there in front of him, make a little pile. Then he'd sing a little song like that and hit that hay and hear a bunch of rats would come out of that hay like that, you know, things like that. Another man, he'd bring in a piece of birch bark, it's something written on it, put it in there, area gun, and he'd tell that guy, here, he said, shoot me, he said. Oh, I can't do that, he said. I'm not a killer. No, shoot me, it'll be okay. So I guess this guy aimed and shot him. Oh, went. And here he spit up that bullet like that thing. And different ones, they'd eat that fire. They'd make a fire and eat it. And when they'd blow like that, flames would come out of their mouth. Stuff like that. This is some of the stuff I heard, although I've seen some of it myself too. So this is the kind of stuff. And also, but mostly, most of all, this kind of knowledge was used for healing and for long life and for healthy life. That's what it was for. And that's why it was taught to people, so they could help each other live a good, healthy life, not a bad, selfish life where you show off your powers and stuff like that. So, but it took a long time and maturity. So we have this in the spring and also in the fall. The one in the spring here is usually a teaching lodge. So you have a lot of inductees. So boys about this age, this girl, they would be initiated into that first degree. Okay. Young children like this, they couldn't go in. And usually the ceremony would last 11 days, sometimes 12 days. A lot of feasting and stuff, a lot of songs sung, a lot of teaching. And the initiation of this is they would shoot the shell at you. They'd shoot the shell and they would have these animal bags, fur bags made out of a certain kind of animal. And the 6th and 7th degree would make a sound and they'd shoot this animal. This shell would come out of this animal and you would actually feel it hit you. And then they'd go to work on you, doctoring you, and they would retrieve that shell. And that went into your first bag. So you're initiated from death into life. Now, I can say this because I've gone through this several times myself, haven't attained the 4th degree. Okay. So the different animals, like the 1st degree is usually the weasel. It could also be, yeah, that's what it usually is, the smallest creature, but a fearless creature. And then you have your mink, 2nd degree. And then from there you have a bobcat or lynx, big. And then 4th is your bear. And that's usually by a bear paw, bag, a bear bag with the paw. It's made into a bag. Okay, that's your medicine bundle there. All your stuff in there. And then it goes on the different ones up. So initiation for a lot of the young men and girls start in the spring. Okay, the teaching lodge, they start teaching you. And they have their drum is a water drum, Not like the peyote drum, but it's made out of a certain tree. And they hollow it out and they fill it with water, has a hide skin over it. And they have a stick, looks like a cane, like this, like an L shape. And they hit that. And that, depending how full it is, it makes a sound boom, 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 boom. And they sing all these old songs. Okay. Well, that's just a part of it. Okay. So another one that happens in May, the frog croaking moon, is the woman's water ceremony. This is a very important ceremony and feast for the women and young girls. Okay. And that's going to happen here this year too. We won't be doing the Meday Lodge because there's not enough people here that do that. So you'd have to go east, quite a ways east. The woman water ceremony goes back to very, very ancient times, thousands of years ago, when Nokomis, the first mother, grandmother, and she's in charge of the water, and she was immortal woman, and now because she is the Nibagisis, the moon, symbol of the moon, controls the water and all the women and all the water. And so they have a special ceremony, and they make these little tiny kind of rafts, and they're made out of a certain kind of willow, and they put an offering on there. And then they go down to the water and they take these willows, a different kind of willow than the kind the raft is made. And they take it and they put it in the water, and they splash that water like that. And while they're splashing, they're singing a song, has to do with that spirit that's in the water. And then, if it's possible, they go into the water, about up to their ankles, and then they hold their offering and they sing to that water. That affects the cleansing of water on the face of the earth, and also the berries that come out and the nuts that come up, all the wild things that grow, like for fruit for the birds and for human beings and other creatures that eat berries and the nuts and stuff like that. That affects that. Some years ago, back home, we didn't have no berries for about 3 years. Now, back home, we have currants, we have wild raspberries, we have wild strawberries, we have June berries, Saskatoon, we have choke cherries, we have wild plums, sweet plums. We also have pecans, pecan nuts. We have big bushes of pecan nuts, and then there's the acorns. And boy, if a person had the knowledge and they could possibly go back partially to live off the land if they knew how to prepare for all of that. Well, we didn't have any berries, nothing for the longest time. Nuts for about 3 years. And people were starting to get worried. And I was thinking, maybe we need to approach the women to have a water ceremony. And so I went and seen a couple old ladies, invited them over to eat. And there I gave them some gifts and some tobacco and asked them if they would perform, because I knew they had done that in the past, this water ceremony. No, they asked me if I could have it at my place, because my house sits kind of in this area, and right in the backyard below my deck, it just falls down, and I own a big lake behind me. And plus my Madudu Swan, my Sweat Lodge, asked if they could have it there. So men can't come to this, boys can't come to this. It's just a woman things. Now, if they invite you to be a helper or server, that's all you can do, but you don't say anything. You have to keep your mouth shut. It's their thing, you know. So yeah, and so they went down there and they had that water ceremony. And you know what? We never had so many berries. I mean, the bushes were hanging to the ground. I mean, it was just, it never had so many berries. I mean, the small bushes, the raspberries and even the strawberries were just, it was, people made jam and pies but we made a little gift. Again, we took some of the berries and we put them as an offering out there and thank the spirits of. Women have that ability with the water to do that. And they can cleanse the world, cleanse up water to allow that. Okay, so that takes part, happens. And so women will have their first water ceremony this spring. And yeah, Umaka Kigis, this in the frog croaking moon. Okay. How are we set for time? 7:30. Is that? Oh, okay. Okay. I better have drink some coffee. I'm talking too fast. Not everybody kind of fools around with birch bark. There's only certain families who've been doing it. My family is one. We've always worked with birch bark. Some families, they make willow baskets, beautiful willow baskets and baby cradles made out of big laundry baskets and out of willow. And the frame is made out of ash. And but because the wheatgrass tree has a history and a story, actually the wheatgrass Metog saved Nanabujo's life. In one of the Nanabujo stories we have, Nanabujo went up to one of the thunderbird's nests and he was so hungry. He took some of those baby thunderbirds and he killed them and he ate them. Of course, those thunderbird mother and father came back and they seen that. And they were trying to kill Nanabujo and he was running between the big rocks and boulders and the lightning was flashing and boy, he was just almost getting hit. And here off in distance, he's seen this big birch tree, this big white tree, had white bark, and it was split towards the bottom. And he ran in there and he hit in there, and those thunderbirds were hitting all around that tree. And because of that, that's how the bark has these little black lines. Not this one, this is a young one. You see the birch bark has those little black lines and on some of them, they have big marks and they're shaped like birds, actual birds. And so that's a very powerful tree, but he gave Nanabujo, with his abilities and powers, he gave the birch bark tree a special medicine. It has a special medicine. Not only, it is the most used tree of all the Anishinaabe plants and trees. They use it for their houses, their wigwams, their canoes, because it's mildew and bug resistant and it's water resistant. So if you go in the woods and you'll see these big long tubes laying on the grounds and all the wood part of the tree inside is just hollowed out and rotten, but you have these big stovepipe looking things. and they last forever. Now, if you peel the bark on the inside of it, like this one, when you first take it off, there's a white dust on it. That's very strong medicine. So if people have become diabetic and they don't take care of themselves, they get these sores, they injure their skin, they get sores, and they can get gangrene. You know, you put that dust or a light piece of that bark, wrap it on your skin, and it miraculously just heals it real fast. Diabetics get sores on their feet, and if they don't take care of them, that's why they get gangrene. They have to cut their feet off or a foot, or they don't, they continue. My brother-in-law died like that. They kept amputating his foot, leg. Pretty soon they amputated right up here by the hip, but the gangrene kept working its way up. That's how it all started. So we use that for medicine too. And of course it has the sap, but it also cures sores. If you have sores or if you have bad skin, you know, people with boils, they get boils or something, they can put this on. So this is also used as a salve for burns, rashes, scrapes, things like that. So it's a good medicine. So yeah. I'll be bringing some of that back here this spring. When I go home, I'll bring a big bundle of birch bark. So.
Really good for starting fires.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the old people used this for fire start. It burns hot and it burns long if you just peel a little part of it. And so they used to use this for a fire starter. Now, what that's after the fire gets going, or even with wet or damp wood, you can get the wood start because it burns longer than grass and it doesn't hold the moisture. So it stays dry. All you do is just peel a piece off of it. So.
You got a bag of scrap. That took very little.
Yeah. So we go out before we peel the bark. We do it in the spring when it's sapping, and we cut a ring around above us and then a ring around. We don't cut too deep. Then we connect them with a line, and the bark will actually just pop right off. No, nothing. It just pops right off. And now the tree will regrow. Some people think, well, you'll kill the tree, but in 7 years, you go back to the same thing. And next year you'll see it becomes all black, scabbed, and then in the following years, the white will start showing to the black scabs, and then it heals itself. In 7 years, you wouldn't even know you peeled the bark. So really good that way. Plus it's a hardwood too. So we have a feast, we go out there and we will usually tie a cloth or offer some tobacco, or we'll take one of these here and make a hole on it and tie it to the tree with something in it and have a little feast there, and we'll sing to the tree and before we start taking bark from it. So shown respect to this living thing, and you know, it's served our people in a good way for many years. So yeah.
So does the birch tree, does it have to be white?
It's usually white, but there's different kinds of birch. There's a yellow birch, there's a
The red birch.
got a red birch. Those are the young ones, the little shoots. Yeah. Oh, and there's another medicine that grows off the birch. Now, this is a really important medicine. They call it chaga. Have you heard of chaga? Chaga is actually a fungus that grows off a birch that's dying. That's in the process of dying. It's like a fungus that grows, okay? Now, chaga is a fighter. You can break these pieces off and they're kind of golden looking, but black on the outside, some of it. And so what chaga does by itself, it can heal all kinds of serious kind of sicknesses, but it is also a fighter medicine. It enriches and strengthens other types of medicines. Okay. So I've used chaga many times. We have all kinds of medicines back home to heal all kinds of sicknesses like cancer, different kinds of cancer, TB, stomach and bone problems, and we'll always add chaga to it, and liver for cirrhosis. People have cirrhosis, dealing with cirrhosis, and they come into recovery, they're quit, but already they've damaged their liver. So, you know, we have a medicine for that, and we'll help them with that, but we always add the chaga to it. It just strengthens that plant more. So that's a medicine, a strong fighting medicine that comes off the wigwas tree. So yeah. So yeah, so that's another gift from the birch tree. So yeah, I forgot about that until I just mentioned it. Yeah, chaga. So it's becoming quite popular of late. They call chaga. Well, we've been using it for years, and all of a sudden it shows up just like the echinacea plant. Yeah, like the echinacea, the purple cone flower. Yeah, well, we've been using that for years for asthma and lung problems. That's part of the medicine we use for COVID. That, and we call it Mucadea nun, the black star medicine, because you cut that root towards the top of the plant and you look at it and it forms a little black star in it. It's kind of yellowish, but it has this little dark brown or black thing there on top. So that's the echinacea plant, and we've always used that. So we've used that. The red willow and the white willow, we use that for the COVID cure. So, yeah, because of the respiratory problems that, yeah. Then we use other medicines if we have to, if they have a weak immune system. So we usually have them drink some other medicine to build up their immune system and stuff. So, yeah. That's all right. He sounds like a baby wolf, huh? Yeah. Yeah. Any questions so far? So these are just half. These are just half. Let's show the other half of, we'll be discussing these tomorrow night. What's the other ones? Yeah, we got it. Or yeah, here's the other ceremonies and feasts we have. So there's more. There's more. Now, that third one down. Wabiguan, Jesus, the flowering moon in June. The Thursday dance. Now, the Anishinaabe or the Chippewa people never had the Sundance. Now in 1824, something happened to one of our big villages over on the Red River, Upper Red River, at a place called Mountain in the Pembina Valley. They were attacked, and the men and older boys are out west somewhat hunting the buffalo, and the Dakota came in from the south, and well, there was nothing but old people there and children, and they attacked and they pretty much massacred everybody, but they took about 30 children. When they came back and they looked over the bodies, and there was about 30 children missing. Okay. Anyway, right away they started, they painted this leather glove red. They filled it full of tobacco, and they took that glove out to all the different camps and different bands. It was those who wanted to go to war. Good, you know, because everybody was related back then. At that time, they had what they called the Napewat. We were part of a Napewat, the Confederacy of the Cree, the Assiniboine, the Métis proper, those who followed their mothers or fathers' traditional ways. And then, of course, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa. And so because of that, they went 2 days march, because they didn't have horses then. We didn't have horses. We stayed to the east by the big woods, because we had the guns, but we didn't have horses. We were still vulnerable like that. But and there was a man called Meany Eagle Setting. Meany Eagle Setting was a powerful man. He had the thunder, he was a carrier of the thunder bundle. But anyway, he made this thirsty dance, what we call a thirsty dance. It was the sun dance. And the Cree gave that to our people as a nation, the Chippewa. First time we had it. We never had it before. And so, but there's more to that story. But that's how we gained it. And it wasn't so long ago. So it was relatively new to us. Okay. So that's how, Go ahead. Yeah, he was Cree. Yeah. Yeah. And my father-in-law, his grandpa, his dad was first cousins to this man. And I'm related to him from my mother's side way back to this Meany Eagle City, which allows me to put up this lodge. And I've done it for many years. Okay, put up that lodge. So I haven't put it up in 4 or 5 years, because last time I had to help this last chief of ours, this William Warren, put up, because you have to put it up in 4-year cycles. Okay, so, but anyway, he passed away after his first year, so I obliged, with the permission of the family, to finish his cycle out. So, because didn't want anything bad to happen to his family for not fulfilling what he couldn't. So that's how we got that. That's a big deal. That's a big deal, because they start the preparation of that bundle actually in the little spirit moon in December. They start the ceremonies and they prepare, and they have 4 big gatherings until the time they put up the lodge. Okay. And it's a lot that it goes into it. A lot of community. I cannot say that the Little Shell will ever do that, because there has to be a community first, a solid community, and it takes a solid community to be involved with that. Not to say there are people within the Little Shell community to have good reason to dance in the lodge. But it takes a community. A man cannot do that by himself. It takes a lot of workers and helpers. There's a lot that goes on to that, but who knows? Who knows what will happen? So we'll discuss that more, but that actually takes place on close to the summer solstice in June, about the third week, I believe, something like that, of 22nd or something starts there. And so, yeah, even though the Cree up on the Rocky Boy, there's aspects of their lodge that they have put away and they don't do anymore. But our lodge fulfills all the ways as it was given to them. We even have the songs of Mini Eagle City. Those original songs that he had. Very powerful songs. So, yeah,